Yeah, I mean, the argument almost becomes, it becomes a completely different debate if you take the tools and technologies out of the conversation.
Yes.
You know, because I think a lot of our biases about BIM or GIS are based on our knowledge to date of the tools that we use.
Agreed. It's been,
Yep. Right, and I think there's an issue.
There is a single tool that you can use for GIS. If you pick that, but there isn't a single tool that you can use for BIM to cover all the aspects.
that's correct.
One other thing that's helped me in understanding BIM from a GIS infrastructure side is changing the P from a noun to a verb. You know, it's
Exactly.
information.
Exactly.
I'm either building an information model or I'm getting information about something that I'm building rather than a building as a physical location. Just one more thing, Pete, maybe like you addressed, the gentleman over there from my industry. Where do you see GIS incorporating more 3D, not as just an attribute, but as actual model? I worked with Vulcan software, where you have a 3D GIS. I'm able to go and do a spatial query on boreholes and be able to look at it, add a 3D model, but still be able to spatially query it. That, I think, is one big drawback right now of traditional GIS.
And the answer is yes. Just spinning back just a few seconds, but it's the right tool for the right job. It's just fascinating watching the heated, rich debate going on amongst you. That's exactly what I find when I go in and see organisations that have different departments coming to meet with me. So I have a group of people and they'll just argue about what is the best tool to use, what is the best source of truth. And then it's the sources of truth, this content, the fact that you do have a GIS that maybe doesn't do curves. But guess what? There is a GIS that will quite happily do curves. And it's the GIS I work with. But that's another joke on. But guess what? The data that I'm feeding into that GIS may not be three-dimensional because that particular piece of information doesn't come in with a third dimension. But tools like AutoCAD Map, sorry about the commercial, and they will do that. I'm pulling in more and more 3D information. Whether it's good content, that's to be decided, that's another conversation. But bringing in things like digital elevation models, doing for municipalities, looking at slope aspect ratio, just doing some analysis around that. Because I need that third dimension to make that decision. Mining, I'm dealing with a well-known mining company in, where are we? Nevada. You may have heard of the big gold mining corporation. Might be. But again, it's exactly that third dimension, extremely important because you need to follow where the assets are.
The bottom line is all the information is supposed to be intelligent. 30 years ago, we had information which is intelligently stored information, and we had custom application developed in-house. There is no CAD, nothing. We could digitally slice all files. And believe it or not, it was plotted out without any 3D modeling, plotted out cross sections and HP graph line plotted. It was print plotted. And I couldn't grasp when I saw the first cross sections digitally. Nobody's seen that plot ever. I just spit it out on the plotter. How did you do that? Because all the information, we had core information about that, intelligent enough. And that time it was very computing intensive. We cannot afford to store those information digitally, AutoCAD, random, whatever. If you store your information intelligent enough, it would afford that big multi-million square foot coverage of the information. Everything is computing is just involved. That information will get bigger and bigger. We're never going to catch our need. So just store information as smart as possible so we can enjoy to utilize those analysis to make intelligent decisions.
I agree with you. Store the information as intelligently as possible, right? Create that model digitally.
And that happens every day, doesn't it? I agree with you, but there's still a lot of unintelligent stuff out there that's still equally as useful at the moment. But I applaud organisations like the University of Kentucky that are moving to that complete, I want to know what's going on with my assets, that intelligence. Actually, universities are pretty good at doing stuff like that.
Does anybody in this room redigitize their designs and put it into their GIS? That's great. They wouldn't raise their hand, Lester, because that's just...
So how many people have got using BIM but are actually using GIS information in that BIM environment?
Yeah, there's no doubt that they feed into each other at different stages in the whole life cycle. I mean, but the types of information that you need to construct the building, a lot of it overlaps, but not all of it, with what the type of information that you need to manage the building or analyze or an example might be an elevator in a multi-story building. You might model your elevator in a very detailed way, but when it comes time to do analysis in what would traditionally be called a GIS environment, for example, for evacuation, routing, and things like that. Does the elevator really know in the model that it connects these hallways and floors in a vertical space? Maybe, maybe not, but it's not necessarily something that's needed to construct a building. So there's a process not only in transferring data or sharing data, I should say, between a BIM or a design environment to a management environment. There's also a process of maybe massaging or making that, or adding some different types of intelligence to that data.
I think it requires a new approach. Right now, when we design, we ultimately should be designing for this endpoint, but majority of us still design for this endpoint. And what I'm referring to is the majority of us still design for the sole purpose of construction. And yet, when Matt was talking about sustainability, in order for us to truly address sustainability, we have to design for the entire life cycle of that particular project, that asset. Whether it's a building, or whether it's a piece of pipe in the ground, or a new rail line. We have to design for the entire life cycle, not just construction. And how does that happen? Are you going to volunteer your services if you're the one responsible for creating that design? Are you going to volunteer your services to give them a design that can be used during the operation and management side? Or if you're going to hire somebody to do a design, are you going to ask them to do that for you? Which comes first? And I think all of us in this room, if we believe in this idea of sustainability, need to think about designing with a new end in mind, and that being the entire life cycle, not just up into construction.
Agreed. Sorry, that was a good argument, actually. I can't.
I would say that's the owner's responsibility, because the owner is the one that has to deal with the full life cycle of the building, and the standard AEC projects that happen are a very small percentage of the actual use of that building throughout its life. There may be multiple revisions that they use the Revit as a design tool, construction tool, but it's a small component, so you have to have the owner really having a clear focus of what that life cycle needs to be to provide the information to the AEC firms, saying this is how we need the information because this is what we're doing with it, but also be able to provide you with the necessary information to start that process.
Spin that around the other way. How many people here actually provide that as a service to their clients? So working the other way around, I'm seeing that quite often where an organisation will say, let us provide that service to you to help you manage that life cycle and, excuse me, helping you get to that point that Mike just said, not designing to this point.
But the owner has to pay for it.
Right.
But
hire someone to do that.
Owner, when one doesn't exist, there's a lot of developers that develop something and sell it off. The owner's never part of that process, and they're not an economic partner in that process, and twice the sustainability is a problem. The owner doesn't exist in a large percentage of the projects that you want, so there has to be a virtual owner that owns the project.
Yeah, but
We don't have to be that owner for them when they're not there.
I would argue that the only reason why we have, why architects use Revit to create these enormous models isn't because they have a lot of extra time in their hands. It's because it's all owner-driven. Finally, I mean, I think that's one of the things that, to me, I think has, I mean, we've been talking about the dream of BIM for the past 30 years. The problem is that everybody was kind of like, well, it's all the architects have to figure out how to do it. And the architects are going, what benefit does it give me as the designer of the building?
I had this very conversation with an architect, forgive me for butting in, but you're right, but I had this very conversation with an architect. I was presenting geospatial information, just called it GIS information in AutoCAD map, but how that could benefit that architect in helping their client find the best possible site based upon the requirements of the client. The quote I got back, this was from a principal of an architectural practice in Denver, said, well, typically we've just given the piece of land, plonk the building on the piece of land. That's his exact words. I said, well, okay, that's fair enough, I understand that works well. However, I didn't know that I could think about this process of actually aggregating different information from multiple sources, GIS information, making sense of that, and then providing that service to my client who's always looking for different brownfield, greenfield sites around different parts of the nation. So it was an interesting conversation where, hey Pete, like what you're showing, GIS stuff looks useful, I'm an architect, don't need it because the client gives me this sticker Revit model on it. However, you give me a couple of extra arrows in my quiver that I can go out, approach different customers and suggest, look, I know you're looking at maybe a Ford dealership and, you know, we can help you by bringing in statistical demographic information from the Census Bureau, find out where the best place to have a dealership with a brand new V8 Ford Mustang that's coming out. Are you going to put it in an area where the sort of average age is maybe about 75? Things like that. Maybe that's not a bad idea, but
This is something that we are doing.
okay.
And
Sorry, you're an architect, or?
I'm with an architecture and urban design firm.
Okay.
And well, sorry to introduce another acronym, but we actually have talent information modeling, or TIM, that we take in through the patent office.
Oh, you patented it already?
Not that, yes.
Quick, make a note.
But it's more of a process.
Okay.
Right? And what we do, I mean, one of the beliefs that we have is that architecture and urban design or planning is inextricable. And we carry that through BIM and GIS. And, you know, the scalability issues that you're talking about, the different software, these are the things that we're addressing where we are adding, GIS is just data, whatever it is, it's information. And it can be tax data, it can be, you know, it can be some use data. And we are consolidating or coordinating that with the built environment, whether it is existing or it's to be proposed. And it can be as simple as, you know, in California we had a project with the municipality where we had to make sure that the sight line to the ocean wasn't blocked by new developments. There was another project that we did for a municipality in Hawaii where we had to survey about 53 blocks of existing buildings and site. And with GIS data or the municipality provided data, confirm the square footage per use, per floor, per block, you know, whether it's a building, whether it's a parking lot, and then propose phased development of those blocks. Turned out to be about 66 million square feet of space. And the same thing applies to a single family.
Yeah.